Big divides and widening fissures became the theme of the G20 foreign ministers meeting in New Delhi today. This even as India tried to bridge the gap. Well, it is said that there was consensus on 22 out of the 24 issues that were on the agenda, but the elephant in the room continued to be the Ukraine war and Russia's role in it. Leaders locked horns over the issue, while the so-called neutral countries became mediators. The global divisions also were laid bare at other instances during the meeting. For instance, Russia and China jointly criticized the West for employing blackmail and threats against other countries. Following a meeting of the two countries' foreign ministers,
the West says Russia should face a strategic defeat. This aligns with their central problem with Russia. They attempt to preserve the hegemony on the world arena. The West says Russia should face a strategic defeat. The West attempts to preserve their hegemony on the world arena.
And today, when addressing the participants of the foreign minister meeting, President Modi, I think he presented balanced and responsible position of the country as the president of the G20.
The U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said the meeting had been marred by Russia's invasion of Ukraine. In an expected move, he slammed Russia for starting the war.
Every G20 member, and virtually every country, period, continues to bear the costs of Russia's war of aggression, a war that President Putin could end tomorrow if he chose to do so.
Blinken urged G20 to call on Russia to withdraw its forces from Ukraine and also lauded India for its G20 presidency.
And let me begin by thanking our host, India, for setting out an ambitious agenda for this meeting and for its presidency of the G20. Prime Minister Modi said today that we should not allow issues that we cannot resolve together to come in the way of those that we can. And I think what we saw today is a very good reflection of what the Prime Minister said. That is, work and agreement on a whole series of lines of effort that the G20 will take to address the issues of greatest concern to people around the world. And that's been the focus of the United States.
On more than one occasion, India said that the focus needs to be on the global south and not on the Russia-Ukraine war. The fact is that there was consensus on most issues, and that is being seen as a win.
Of the issues which concern especially the global south, the developing countries, there was a considerable meeting of minds, and a considerable meeting of minds which has been captured by the outcome document.
The G20 meeting is also important for the bilateral discussions that take place on the sidelines. The foreign ministers of India and China, for example, held such a meeting, which came in the backdrop of growing tensions along the line of actual control between the two neighbors. India's Foreign Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar held bilateral discussions with U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken as well. There were a series of other important meetings too with representatives of other countries. However, the most crucial one was between the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. The two leaders had a 10-minute chat on the sidelines of the foreign ministers' meeting. Blinken urged Russia to reverse its position on the nuclear treaty that Putin recently withdrew from. He also called for the release of Paul Whelan. In this rare meeting, since the Ukraine war began, Blinken underscored, once again, American support for Kiev. Earlier, while addressing the foreign ministers' meeting, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi said multilateralism was in crisis.
Financial crisis, climate change, pandemic, terrorism and wars clearly shows that global governance has failed. You are meeting at a time of deep global divisions. As Foreign Minister, It is but natural that your discussions are affected by the geopolitical tensions of the day.
For more on this, we're now joined by Ambassador Meera Shankar. She is former Indian ambassador to the United States. Thanks very much, ma'am, for joining us here on WION. Now, the US Secretary of State Antony Blinken commended India's presidency of the G20 and the fact that India managed to secure consensus on a broad set of issues. But of course, we know what happened as far as the Ukraine war is concerned. How do you view how this meeting panned out?
Well, I think it's good, and that's something which Foreign Minister Jaishankar also said, that there were a large number of issues concerning global challenges where countries were in agreement and consensus could be reached. And these involved, reviving sustainable economic growth, narcotics and global terrorism, climate change, pandemics, and of course, issues of food security and debt of the developing countries. So there are a large number of issues on which there is agreement to how to proceed. But because of the differences over Ukraine and very sharp differences between the US and the Western countries on the one hand and Russia and China on the other, a joint communique could not be adopted, and the outcome was put forward in a chair's summary by India.
Now, Italy's Prime Minister, who is here in India, has said that New Delhi could in fact play a crucial role in negotiations to end the Ukraine war. How optimistic are you of something like that happening?
Well, backroom discussions really can, look at possible areas where progress could be made and to sound out whether there are any openings, because there are formal positions which countries take, and those formal positions are fairly rigid. And what back channel talks can do is to see whether there is a possibility of any opening, whether there are any potential areas of overlap where even incremental progress could be made, even if it can't be made on the whole basket of issues.